federal judge is set to rule very soon on the future of the immigration detention center in Florida called by some alligator Alcatraz. An environmental group and Native American tribe sued over concerns that facility would or probably already has in their view harmed the surrounding Everglades. Everyone knows about the famous 1962 Alcatraz escape. But what they don't know is what investigators found when they retraced the exact route in 2025. Using advanced scanning technology, they discovered something that changed everything about that night. The same things that made alligator Alcatraz appealing to the governor. Its remote location, its airstrip, and it being surrounded by alligators are what made it unacceptable to a judge. Hidden behind the cell walls wasn't just a utility corridor. It was connected to a network of sealed chambers that had been forgotten since the 1800s. Inside one of these rooms they found items that shouldn't exist. Uniforms from different decades, tools that looked like torture devices, and most disturbing of all, evidence that the escapees might not have been the first to use these hidden passages. The Everglades, as we all know, is one of the most unique and fragile ecosystems in the world, and the entire state of Florida is reliant on a healthy Everglades. Alcatraz didn't start as a prison. Long before its cells echoed with the footsteps of famous criminals, the island was a fortress. Back in 1850, President Millard Fillmore ordered the military to claim the rocky outcrop for coastal defense. By 1853, engineers began carving into the island, turning it into a fortified military post. By 1858, Fort Alcatraz stood complete, armed with over 100 cannons. But what made it different from other forts were the hidden chambers beneath the surface. Deep underground, the Army had built bomb-proof gunpowder vaults, meant to survive explosions. As time passed, these underground magazines were simply forgotten. When the island was converted into a federal prison in the 1930s, the massive concrete cell blocks were poured directly on top of the old military remains. Thick slabs of cement buried the original citadel. By the time Alcatraz officially opened as a prison in 1934, hardly anyone remembered what was hidden beneath their feet, but the sealed rooms were still there. These underground vaults were first carved during the Civil War. Back then, the fort's design included earth-covered tunnels and vaulted ammunition chambers. Some were used, some were never finished, and others were just left behind when the military lost interest in upgrading the fort in the 1870s. These buried rooms didn't just vanish, they were entombed. For decades, nobody touched them. Then came a breakthrough. In 2014, researchers scanned beneath the recreation yard with ground-penetrating radar. What they found shocked everyone. Just under the surface, only a few centimeters below the concrete, were the bricklined remains of a bomb-proof traverse tunnel from the 1860s, still intact after 150 years. Archaeologist Timothy DeSmet described his disbelief at how shallow they were. You could have been standing on history and never known it. These were not just cold, empty rooms. During the Civil War, soldiers stationed on the island had already been uneasy. Some said they heard strange echoes from the powder tunnels at night, footsteps when no one was there, faint whispers or cries coming from the walls. The tunnel vents had a way of carrying sounds, and some believed the place was haunted. One rumor from the 1860s claimed a worker was buried alive during a cave-in, and that his screams never stopped echoing underground. Officially, no such death was recorded, but the stories lingered. Guards would sometimes refuse to go down alone. They whispered about ghostly moans and men who never came back from patrol. By the time of the Spanish-American War in 1898, Alcatraz had become a full military prison. The inmate population exploded, almost overnight, from just 26 to over 450. With the official jail cells overflowing, guards started using the old storage tunnels as makeshift holding pens. Prisoners were thrown into these pitch-black chambers buried under the island. Some of them wrote desperate messages on the brick walls, names, prayers, final goodbyes. These writings remained hidden for over 100 years. Then in 2019, archaeologists returned with scanners and uncovered those same tunnels. They found scratched graffiti on the walls in Spanish and English. One haunting inscription dated 1898 read, Dios me abandon, God, have you forsaken me? Next to it were tally marks counting off the days. Another just said, Adios misos. Goodbye, my children. These weren't just markings. They were cries from the past, sealed inside rooms no one had entered for generations. Nature itself sealed some chambers for good. On April 18, 1906, the Great San Francisco earthquake shook the entire Bay Area. The main fortress buildings on Alcatraz held up, but several old tunnels and brick casemates collapsed. A communication tunnel built in the 1870s was buried. Another entry passage near the main gate caved in. The army didn't try to fix them. They just walled them, often walked away. Some of those sealed tunnels still held supplies, tools, gear, possibly even weapons. According to later park records, nothing was ever retrieved, and there were whispers that some guards went missing in the quake and were never seen again. Maybe they ran. Maybe they were trapped under the rubble. No bodies were found, but the idea took root. People imagined bones buried under Alcatraz's floors, frozen in time. In one restricted area beneath the old laundry room, modern radar scans picked up strange shapes. Some said it could be crates of Civil War rifles or old shell casings. Others wondered if the skeletons were real. The truth is, no one knows for sure. What's certain is that these sealed spaces still exist, and they've kept their secrets for over a century. Even as the island changed, its buried past kept surfacing. In the early 1900s, Alcatraz was reborn again, this time as a maximum security federal prison. By 1934, it was no longer a fort or a holding facility. It had become the toughest prison in America. But beneath the new concrete walls were the same old tunnels. During construction, workers stumbled across ancient brick caissons, bunkers, and stairwells. Some they filled in, others they paved over. The citadel's lower levels were left in place. So below the prison's D block, the old military dungeon still sat cold and dark. Tour guides would later call these spaces the dungeons, and for a time they were actually used as punishment cells. Eventually they were sealed. But the idea of hidden cells beneath the prison stuck in the recreation yard. 2 Civil War gun implants were simply paved over with fresh cement. The guards didn't know what was underneath. The inmates didn't either, at least not at first. Then came the case of Cell 14D. In 1940, a man was locked into the solitary cell for misbehavior. Hours later, he began screaming. He said something was in the dark with him, glowing eyes watching. The guards ignored him. They were used to panic attacks. But the screams continued into the night. Then they stopped. When they opened the cell in the morning, the prisoner was dead. His face was twisted in terror. His throat showed bruises from strangulation, but the cell had been locked. The guards swore they hadn't touched him. No other inmate could have gotten in. Warden Johnston wasn't superstitious, but even he was disturbed. He shut the cell